If you see this one word on your bill when you go to pay in Italy and you don't understand what it means, you could be wasting a lot of money. But most tourists here in Italy have no idea what it means. So what do you need to know? What's that one word? Well, we're gonna get into that, and actually a few different words you need to know about. And stick around, because later in the video I'll tell you about this one simple mistake I made that cost me a small fortune when I was traveling here in Italy. You're in Italy, in and out of different restaurants, loving life, and you're familiar with the menu. You scan it, you see the things you recognize: pasta, pizza, pesce, vino, all that good stuff. But then you see something there, a small fee, that says coperto. What is this? What's this all about? Well, we're going to decipher the ins and outs of an Italian menu and what you need to know about these little fees that are hidden on the menu or on your bill when you go to pay. This word coperto, let's get into the meaning of this and where it comes about. Coperto, well, literally means cover in Italian, and in this case, cover charge. The blanket I cover myself up with at night, that's called a coperto, a cover. Most tourists think that you don't have to pay a coperto when you're at a restaurant. It's usually a charge of 2 to 5 euro, but that's simply not the case. So where did this coperto come from? Why is it this word? Well, I think it dates back to the Middle Ages from what I read. Back then, some travelers, to save money, would bring their own food and stop at an inn or an old hotel and ask to sit down at a table so they could have their food and order a drink along the way. And those inns would oblige, but they would charge them a fee to sit down there at the tablecloth and the cutlery and such. And it became known as a posto coperto. Hence, I'm in Boboli Gardens here in Florence. This place is amazing. It's the Medici family's old garden. I think they had this whole place to themselves. Now it's open to the public. That's how this word posto coperto came about. And coperto, now for us and for you when you're traveling in Italy, it's a word you want to keep in mind when you see it on the bill. But what about tipping? Sorry about the speaker. It's an announcement of closing here in this. I got here a bit late. But what about tipping? In Italy, we don't have that tipping culture like you might have in places like the United States. It's just not done here unless you're at a high-end restaurant, cafe, or say hotel. But if you are going to tip, you're leaving 1 to 2 euro to simply round up the bill. Say if your bill was 14, it goes to 15 euro if you want to, if you've had great service. And if you want another word for tip, well, that's simply mancia. We're going to go through a few different words in this video so you can write them down and study them for your trip. But what can really catch you off guard is when you're going in for having a coffee and they're asking you al banco or al tavola, and what is this? What does this mean, al tavolo? Well, that's the fee you're going to have to pay if you take your coffee at a table. So what do you need to know? What are the words? Al banco, that means at the bar. So they'll ask you when you go up to the cash register if you want to have your coffee at the bar. And in that case, there's no extra charge. It's like $1.50, maybe $2.50 for an espresso, for a cappuccino. You drink it at the bar, bam, you're out of there. The other option is if they ask you al tavolo. Well, that means, would you like to have it at the table? And if you want to sit down, relax, soak in the atmosphere of a small cafe or the Duomo right there in front of you, yeah, say si, and you take your coffee there at the table, and sometimes they'll come to you with the menu and you order from the table. Just be warned, you're going to pay a bit more for that table service. What always gets me a couple of points is that when I'm abroad and I see Italians ordering a coffee and they just stand there at the coffee bar waiting for their coffee, how all the locals kind of look at them strangely like, dude, sit down to enjoy your coffee. They don't know that in those places they're not going to get charged extra, and the Italians are just so used to drinking their coffee quickly and on the go, a little shot of espresso and cafe e via. Now, the other story I want to share with you is sitting down at a table for a coffee. I've done that here in Florence in Piazza del Duomo at a beautiful coffee shop, and you get the whole Duomo right there in front of you. And it's a great way to soak up the day, or if you're on vacation, to really enjoy your experience. Just be warned, you're gonna pay a bit more. The cappuccino that would maybe cost you only €2. Oh, let's not go here. A little dark, look at that. Pretty cool. The cappuccino that would normally cost you €2, well, if you sit down at a table, it could go, say, up to €4 or €5, depending where you are. If you're in somewhere like Venice, sitting in Piazza San Marco, heck, you could pay €8. And no, this is not a scam. This is just the way it is in Italy. And those coffee bars, the cafes, have to pay the city to have their tables outside in that piazza, and it's a premium. And frankly, I think it's kind of worth that fee to sit there and soak in the atmosphere. It's usually in the big cities and in the popular spots. So even here in Florence, if you're off in a piazza, not in the city center, you don't have to pay anything extra to sit down at a table and sip your cafe. So what are some other phrases or words you need to know in Italian to make sure you're saving a few extra bucks, or that you're just not caught off guard? Well, the old pane e coperto. It's a combination of coperto with the pane. In some places, some cities, some regions, local law says that you can't charge a coperto, a cover charge for sitting down. And the restaurants, well, being smart Italians, they find a way to get around this, and they charge you for the bread basket that they put down that we all love, getting those carbohydrates. And so you'll see pane written on your receipt, and it's usually something like €2 per person. So if you're a table of 4, you'll see 2 times 4, and you'll see a charge of, what is that, €8 added on to your dinner plate. Si può uscire solo la... Perché... Oh, okay. Grazie. It's time to get out of here. The other thing you want to look out for is the old servizio. Oh, posso, perché vivo là con... Grazie. Grazie mille. Okay, they're closing. I got to get out of here. So keep an eye out for the old pane coperto, and we're going to get into some of the other things you might see on the receipt here too. But coperto, it's a fee you never saw coming, but now you know. You're going to be well informed as a tourist. The other word or phrase you might see is servizio inclusivo. That means service included. Servizio incluso. Then you might see it abbreviated simply as servizio. Back in the day when restaurants just hired freelancers to do their table work, they would charge the customer, di qua? They would charge the customer a service fee in order to pay those waiters and waitresses. Grazie. So we got our servizio fee that would be included on the receipt. And it's, again, a small fee. And if it's there, you won't have the fee of pane or coperto usually. They don't hit you up with both of those. If you see servizio included, servizio inclusivo, that means it's included, so you don't have to pay anything extra at the end of the dinner. You know they stuck in that service charge, and you don't have to tip. You don't have to tip anyway. Even in that case, if you see servizio inclusivo, you can throw down a tip, but remember, €1 to €2, that's going to be sufficient for any sort of dinner here in Italy. You don't have to overdo it and think about it too much like it is in the United States, where it can be up to 20%. Even here, however, in Italy, even if you're getting a good bargain on the dinners, I have seen prices go up at all the trattorias and osterias. As time goes on, things are more expensive, and I know that's the case in the United States as well. Comment down below, have you seen the same thing? If you get a chance, you gotta get here to Giardino Boboli, the Boboli Gardens, ideally before closing time. It's massive. You get a great view of Piazza del Duomo and understand a little bit of the story of the Medici family. Now, other words, well, this is an important one, and you're probably not going to be spending all your time in restaurants here in Italy, but I won't blame you if you do. This is a good one you want to know, sconto, which means discount. So you can say sconto, discount, and you don't want to use this at chain stores or high-end places, but if you're in small boutiques for unique pieces of clothing or at a Saturday or Sunday market, Well, there you can pull out the old word sconto and impress your fellow Italians with your language skills. And maybe they'll give you a little deal and help you on your way, and you'll be saving a little bit of cash here in Italy. But what about train travel and getting around when you're here in Italy? What are some words you need to be aware of? I want to explain a little story, a big thing that, well, a big mistake, a small mistake that cost me a lot of money. I needed to get from where I used to live up at Lake Como down to Milan to get another train to go from Milan Centrale, the central train station, to Malpensa to catch a flight. And I missed my first train. I had my ticket and I got on another train. It was a slower train. Here we go. They've been waiting for me to... Grazie. And I saw another train come in, so I thought, no big deal, I'll hop in that train. And that was gonna get me to Milan on time, ideally. And got on the train, was going on the ride, and then the train assistant came along checking tickets, and I handed the ticket to the train assistant, and he said, non è convalidata. It's words you don't want to hear. That means I didn't validate the ticket I had, the little paper ticket. And so on the spot, he made me pay a 50 euro fee, a 50 euro fine for me not validating my ticket. And that was a hard lesson learned. And oh yeah, by the way, that train was delayed. By the time I got down to Milan, I missed my connection to get to Malpensa, so I had to pay a taxi, 100 euro, to make sure I got to the airport on time to catch my flight. Now, oh, it's getting a bit dark. Winter months, the sun goes down quickly. So the key takeaway word for you here, convalidata, or convalidare, means to validate. And you don't have to do this on all train tickets. I've seen some of you comment in the videos about when do I convalidare, when do I do that with my ticket? Well, if you're buying your ticket digital, that means you probably don't need to do it. And in fact, you don't. And on the high-speed trains and now the regional trains, when you're buying them online, you have a digital ticket on your phone with a time that's specified. You don't need to validate your ticket. But it's on those older trains, the locale, the local trains, or the regionale, where you have a paper ticket. With the paper ticket, you want to find that little stamping, printing, imprint machine next to the train platform where you're going to get on your train, and you're going to need to stick your ticket in there. It'll make that sound, and it'll stamp the date and time on there, and that proves that that ticket, you validated it for that train ride. Otherwise, you might be jumping on train after train with a ticket that you never validate. And old Gregor Brown, back in the day, when he was trying to save a few euro, was doing that. Shh. So there you go, convalidare, to validate. Because yeah, if you're paying a $50, €50 fine on a train, well, that's a good pizza and wine night wasted. If you enjoy this content that I'm putting out, and if you like this video and it's informing you on your upcoming trip to Italy or helping you think back to those great trips that you've had here to Italy, please do me a favor, give it the old thumbs up. That helps out me a lot, also helps out with the algorithm. By doing so, you're gonna be fed those future videos. The old YouTube algorithm's gonna see that and feed you some of my videos. Also, if you subscribe and hit the alert bell, you'll make sure you're not gonna miss out on any of my upcoming content. So when you're sitting down in that little Roman piazza there with the cathedral right in front of you, or a beautiful fountain out that way, and you're picking up your menu and you're starting to scan it, or you're finishing up your cacio e pepe, full stomach, and sipping back the last little drip of wine, you're not going to be surprised or caught off guard when you see pane, coperto, or pane listed on the bill. You're going to be a pro ready to face the Italian restaurants in style. If you do have any more questions or want to further deep dive into this subject of eating and dining and have a good time in Italy, well, I made a video about it, whole complete breakdown, filling my tummy with primo, secondo, dolce, antipasto. I did it all. You can check out the video here next. You know, I probably should have gone to the park a bit earlier so we didn't have that speaker. Lessons learned all the time.